the aim of this session is a bit to go over, or get our panel experts to discuss the role that communication can play in our field. So I just want to read you something. So I'm Dave Barney. By the way, this is Connie Potter, and with Mira Miska, who's over there. We convened the education and outreach sessions earlier, or last week. So I just want to read you something to introduce this topic. So during the past century, particle physics has provided incredible insights into the nature of matter and the origin and fate of the universe, as we know. Theories have been tested, and through an almost Darwinian process, only those that are substantiated by experiment have survived. Along the way, the technological advances we've made to facilitate our studies have found their way into everyday life through communication techniques, medical imaging, disease treatment, and so on. Present experiments are able to measure phenomenon to a precision that was not dreamt of when they began construction. We saw that very much in the presentations earlier this morning. There are solid plans for continuing the exploration until the 22nd century to help answer the many questions that remain, bring further insight into the universe. So we know all of this. We're all convinced of the benefits, the overwhelming benefits of our basic research for humanity. But as we face increasing challenges for resources, both financial and person power, as well as environmental concerns, for example, for the field to thrive the next century, it's vital to bring the world along on our journey with us. So today what we want to explore with our distinguished panel is the role that communication, education, outreach need to play in achieving this, as well as your part in all of this, because this can't just be done by a few dedicated people. So with that, I hand over to Connie, who will introduce the panel.
Thank you, Dave. Dave, you already know, he's introduced himself, member of the CMS experiment, was a long-standing outreach officer for CMS, and now does a bit of everything, and I don't know how he has the time to do it. So, coming down here, Sphicas, distinguished scientist and current ECFA chair, also a member of the CMS collaboration. He leads presently the CMS physics analysis group. He's taken various roles within CMS, such as a physics coordinator and deputy spokesperson, and is also a fellow of the Royal Society in the UK. Coming on to Spencer Kelly with his Big Bang Stage t-shirt. Those of you in the UK, probably if you watch Click, the regular science program, Spencer has also a double first in computer science from Cambridge and an honorary doctorate in technology. He's one of the longest serving and most experienced technology presenters with the BBC. And he's done two shows, I think now, at CERN. And loves coming to CERN and doing shows. Sarah Demers is a scientist, a professor of physics at Yale University with ATLAS and the Mu-to-E collaborations. She's passionate about public engagement, and I know that one of the things you did was something with physics and dance, which I found absolutely fascinating, with choreographer Emily Coates. Matthew Chalmers is also from CERN. He is the editor of the CERN Courier, and also passionate. Did you want to say something? Former editor of the CERN Courier, that's right, yes. He now has a wonderful Mark, who's doing that job as well now. And then moving on finally to Daniel, who's kind of the Spencer equivalent in the Czech Republic, the most well-known science. Younger, better looking as science. Spencer's telling me in my ear here. All true, by the way. He turned up in shorts and he turned up in a nice suit, made an effort, and I've lost my bit now. Anyway, Daniel rocks. So here is our panel for today.
Thanks, Connie. So the way we think this will work, because we've never done this before, is I've got some starter questions that I will ask the panel. We'd really much appreciate your input. So if you want to have follow-up questions, comments, disagree with the panel, please do so. We've got some microphones, we'll pass them out as needed. So please feel free to interact on this. So I'll start with a simple question, or a simple comment. So discovery of the Higgs more than a decade ago was seen by an estimated worldwide audience of about 1 billion people. Why was this important? What do you think has changed in the public's perception of particle physics since then? So I'm not going to name any person, but I see Matt has his hand up like a good school boy. Matt.
Hello. Hello. So this might be contentious, and I'm very much look forward to hearing from people who do more. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you need to speak a bit louder, though.
I really want to hear more from the people who deal face-to-face with the public, particularly via TV, but I'm not sure the public perception is as negative as that in terms of what we've done since the Higgs. I think we expect too much of what the public understands in terms of the day-to-day advances in particle physics. The Higgs discovery, the switch on of the LHC, was a massive event for our field in terms of putting us on the map for a new generation of people. And I think we're still enjoying that success that we had from that, but it doesn't last forever. I want to make the point, I know this is about education and outreach mainly for, beyond the community, but I think if there's any community that needs to gather its thoughts on the implications of the Higgs discovery and the communication around that, it's ourselves. I think we ourselves as a field are the ones who are questioning the next steps, what we're learning going forward in a period where it's more precision than a direct discovery phase, probably. And unless we can get excited about the future of the field in that respect and the implications of the Higgs boson discovery, we're going to have a hard time convincing others.
Yeah, but why was it important, do you think, that 1 billion people even saw the announcement of the Higgs discovery? Why is that necessary?
I think it's necessary in part because over 1 billion people paid for the discovery. If you look at the fraction of the world's taxpayers who contributed to the discovery of the Higgs boson, I've seen calculations that it was over 90%. The public owns the discovery, and the public is the reason that we do this work. So I think it was absolutely required that the public was involved in the discovery. In terms of the second question, has the perception of particle physics changed in the public, or maybe how has it? I think it's an optimistic question that assumes that the public is thinking about particle physics, which maybe sounds a little bit depressing, but I think represents a phenomenal opportunity that we have to tell our story.
So maybe that will bring us on to our two professional communicators.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, okay, so my thoughts on this are 1 billion people, I didn't know that actually, but 1 billion people watched this, I think because they were told it was important and they've been waiting for it because, the LHC, was being switched on, and then I think it had to be switched off again, and then it was switched on, and then there was the whole thing about, is it going to destroy the universe and all the stuff that goes with that. So there had been some hype, and so I think people were expecting and would have been disappointed if it didn't do the thing that we were told it was going to do. I think it was given a good name as well, rightly or wrongly, the God particle, right? Yeah, okay, so people understand that kind of concept, and a lot of the stuff that I will end up saying today will be about people, probably what you all know, people not really grasping and understanding the field that you work in, and that's fine because you're all brilliant and incredibly intelligent, and most people just haven't studied particle physics like this. So most people understood that this was an important discovery because they were told it was, and that this massive machine, this really impressive machine that made me cry when I went there, had done the thing that we were told it was going to do. Going forward, I think you're right. I don't think people are thinking about it now. I think, there's obviously many more things that people are worried about in the world, and that's what I guess the point of this is, that you are competing not only with the rest of science for attention and money, but the rest of the world for attention as well, with everything else that's going on. So the challenge, I think, is to learn how to communicate, probably to me, people like me and Daniel first, why increasing precision is important, which even to me sounds like, okay, I want another God particle. But I kind of know, I'm a massive geek, by the way. I'm absolutely in love with this field, and I've fallen down every YouTube rabbit hole there is about this sort of stuff. So my understanding is you'll need the FCC before you can go, to whatever you need to do next. I might be wrong. But that's why people were, I think, why they tuned in, because we were all waiting for the thing that we said was going to happen, and now people have got other things to think about.
Why was it successful? 1 billion people? Because Higgs is cool. Because the God particle is cool. And not only you think it, not only I think it, but my grandma thinks it. And that's the reason for success of this story. Because people love it. It was a love brand, the God particle. I can understand it, I can relate to that. It's a little bit tricky. Peter Higgs didn't like the name of God particle. Oh, it's spicy, cool. It's getting better and better. What you can do with this story is to learn from it. To break it down. Why was it successful? Thanks to Peter Higgs and his great story. Thanks to the God particle nickname. Also, thanks to the announcement in Comic Sans. Yes? I was hiring new people in the science department last year, and when I wrote the ad and posted it on Instagram, I wrote it in Comic Sans. Why did I do it? Because several of them wrote me, oh, that's cool, it's like in CERN. And I know these people are better for me than the others. Because they love the joke. Why? Because it has everything it needs to have. Use it as an example, break it down. And you don't need to always target 1 billion people to watch your results. Don't be so hard on yourself. It does not happen every Monday. No. It does not, and it's okay. Don't be too hard on yourself, but use it as a learning opportunity to find out what this story had and what this story still has. You can harvest to communicate your current stories, because you have stories to tell. Not only you are more precise, but you are using cool equipment. How many magnets do LHC has? How many magnets do people have on their fridge? And why should I care about the magnets in LHC? Tell me the story behind. Tell me the story of the technician who's looking after these magnets, as my mom is looking after the magnets with the face of me when I was in the 5th grade. No, we don't have this kind of magnet on the fridge, thankfully. That would be creepy. So use it as a learning opportunity not to make another huge success like Higgs. No. Find a way how to use this example to make your ordinary stories extraordinary, to make sure that people love it. Because God particle is a love brand. And CERN can be a love brand too. What I do believe you could aim for is that people will be proudly wearing t-shirts with the equations. By the way, I have the t-shirt, even with the mistake that is on the t-shirt. A scientist from CERN told me. It's an old one. There was a patch that there was a little bit of mistake, and scientists told me that it's really cool to have it, and I have it. And I love your t-shirt. Yeah, that's it. That's what you are aiming for, to make it a love brand. Because you want to talk about this t-shirt while you are taking the tram, while you are taking the bus. Like people are wearing t-shirts with NASA. Why is that a love brand and CERN is not? You gave the world the internet. That's damn cool. People are not dying thanks to the accelerators because they are in the hospitals. I want CERN to see as a love brand and more people wearing these kind of t-shirts. You are the fashion superstar of the future.
So I think we have a comment from the audience.
Hello, hi. Kind of a question, comment. Do you think it's kind of for everyone that the Higgs discovery was properly communicated? Because I got the feeling, to be honest, that the name was great, was clear that it was an outstanding result, like a mind-blowing, but I don't feel like people outside science and specifically just outside the physics, but still doing science, could really get what was going on there. I'm just comparing it to, like, you know, moon landing. People could understand what's going on there, right? And I also don't agree that the why just stands on applications or we are driven by curiosity. People are driven by curiosity, that's all. That's why fake news works. They're eager for knowing things. It's up to us to maybe do better communication. So would you say that if you discover X today, let's say, what would you do to improve the communication?
Can I just respond to this? I mean, it's all very great getting excited about the Higgs discovery. It was a huge success. But what we're missing here is the things that that story have, we don't have so clearly now. This was a story that of searching for something that had been predicted. There was a natural narrative that anyone could understand. We built the biggest machine ever built, the most complex machine ever built, to discover that. There were tens of thousands of people involved. There was a living theorist called Peter Higgs who was there to go to Stockholm and collect the Nobel Prize. And of course the God particle, the black holes, end of the world stuff helped the case for the public's awareness of this. But that narrative of a prediction and humans building the biggest scientific endeavor so far to find it and then finding it, it was like a scientific fairy tale. And that is behind us. And I don't want to pour water on this enthusiasm. I think it's exactly right what you say, that we can build on this, absolutely. But that big narrative is not there anymore.
Paris.
So this is exactly where I wanted to pick up the baton, which is, it's so easy to get 1 billion people when you talk about God. And when you've spent a couple of years with everybody threatening that unless they stop this crazy machine, it's going to make a black hole and suck up everything. So, you know, you get people's attention. Any monkey would get people's attention under these conditions. So the problem is that we don't get a Higgs every day. Okay, we don't even get it every 5 years, to tell you the truth. So the question is, how do we communicate what it is that we're doing? The excitement and the necessity and the side effects in the post-Higgs era. And already, I think there's one element that is up to us, which is to make sure that we don't project this and we haven't found anything new yet. I think this is one mistake that we make, to tell you the truth. You're telling me this is unsolicited advice. Yeah, but we should stop talking about we haven't found anything yet, anything new yet. We have found a ton of new stuff yet, of things. This is not any particle. It's a completely new beast. It looks like the vacuum. It smells like the vacuum. It is made of, has the numbers, the quantum numbers of nothing. Of nothing, except it's got mass, and it is an entirely new force, the first non-universal force, since there's many high-energy physicists in the audience. We can advertise the fact that there's a new force in the universe, and incredibly enough, it gives mass. Well, who knows what else it can do? Okay, you have to use a little bit of poetic justice in order to capture people's attention again. The fact that we have seen the Higgs coupled to bees and top and so on, these are huge achievements. These are discoveries. I don't see the difference between discovering another black hole merger with 20 solar masses and 15 solar masses on top of the previous 15 solar masses with 15 solar masses. You know, frankly, you know, checking out the fact that the Higgs does what it's supposed to be doing. This is an incredible achievement. It's a discovery, and we should be advertising it, and we're probably not doing enough about it. And we're concentrating too much on the fact that we haven't found a charged Higgs, and we haven't found Susie. But we have found so many other things. I'll come back to this issue of precision physics and so on when we get to future colliders.
Yeah, if I can pick up on a couple of points. First of all, yeah, curiosity. I understand that that's why CERN, I guess, exists and possibly particle physics exists. We were talking beforehand about the fact that there are so many benefits to the work that's been done in particle physics. You know, in the health line, for example, you know, we've got colliders in hospitals, accelerators in hospitals that can help treat cancer, and that is a direct result of the massive machine, you know, under the ground in Switzerland. And I asked the question of some of the panelists, could we have invented those things in a different way, the hospital-based accelerators, without having the massive machine under the ground? Because that's, as a journalist, that's what I might do. Did you need to spend all the billions in order to then shrink it down to help treat cancer? And I think the answer was pretty decent. No one would have known to even look in that direction, develop that small version, and then maybe scale it up so we can find the secrets of the universe. So I love the fact that curiosity is out there. It's a difficult thing to sell these days. You know, we're spending all this money because we're curious. I think the public, you know, don't understand that, or may not tolerate that as much as people in this room would like, because of all the pressures. But I mean, and secondly, on the fact that we don't have another God particle, I suppose there is something else that, you know, they call WIMPs. Is that, am I in the right area? Yeah. Yeah, it's 95% of the universe is missing. So there is a really exciting story if you can work out how to tell it. You know, the problem is, I think you have to say everything we think about the universe is probably wrong. Is that about right or not? No? Yeah. It's like, yeah, either we're wrong or there's a lot missing that we don't understand. So there is a problem there, in that you might have to, well, you don't really want to say, yeah, okay, everything we've worked out so far is wrong. That's a dangerous, you know, path to imply. I was going to say something else, but I'm going to stop now. And I've realised that I might be not making it out of this room alive if I say the wrong thing.
But I think it brings me on to another very related topic of, I think you're right, we're not going to be discovering many new particles in the coming years. But we're moving to precision physics, as we saw this morning very clearly. So how should we communicate that? What's your thoughts on how we communicate the excitement that we all feel when we see go into precisions that we never dreamt about? So how should we communicate that? I know there's probably not an easy response to that. Paris?
It's actually very easy in my mind.
Great, right, done.
So, precision implies the ability to probe rare things. You realize that we discovered CP violation from something that occurs at the level of 2 × 10⁻³ K-longs. You know, explain that to the public, you know, decaying to 2 pions and so on. This is something that you needed to be able to observe at the level of 10⁻³, 1 in 1,000. Even today, you know, this measurement from Atlas, electron to muon universality and so on, it was at the level of 5 per mil, not at the level of the K-long thing. What did we learn from it? Something that has to do with matter, antimatter asymmetry. It is a precision measurement. You want to talk about the CMB? The temperature of the universe is 2.7 degrees. Well, not quite. It's 2.7 degrees, and it has fluctuations at the level of 10⁻⁵, 10 parts in a million. It is that 10 parts in a million that completely changes the picture of how we understand the universe, right? That's how we measure the amount of dark matter. That's how we project actually on the different, we're hoping that even the way that these fluctuations appear, their orientation, are going to tell us about inflation and, you know, the very, very earliest moments of the universe. It's precision physics. So we should not be underestimating its incredible power. We just have to explain it the right way. We really have to put it in the right context and explain it to people.
Sarah, Well, let hand over to Sarah.
So I'm going to be a bit dangerous here and actually say I don't think it's the right question, and then I'll let other people talk about how we do it. I don't think we need to sell precision physics to the public. I think we need to sell precision physics to our colleagues and our funding agencies. I think we need to sell particle physics to the public, and all of the ingredients that went into the Higgs boson story that made it miraculous are still there. It's not just the Large Hadron Collider that's a miracle. You talk about the experiment that you're working on, my experiment, you know, weighs as much as the Eiffel Tower, hundreds of millions of electronic channels. It's not even just the equipment that we have and that we've managed to make work together, but it's all of us. The fact that we are coming from so many different countries. It's our individual stories. I think as a field, we've understood better, and we understand every day how to communicate with the public and what works, what people care about. They care about human beings working together, facing incredible challenges, and somehow succeeding, and yeah, in making things work. So I don't think we need to sell precision physics to the public. I think we need to sell particle physics to the public. And in that way, I do think we can learn from the Higgs boson discovery, because I think we have the ingredients at our fingertips. But if someone wants to answer your question, I'm happy to have them.
Well, I think we've generated some questions from the audience, so maybe we'll get some audience comments. I think the lady here.
Yes, so I have a comment about Higgs discovery and beyond. We are working a lot with students and teachers from Ukraine at the moment during the war. So they are connecting to our CERN webinars and teacher programs, and this provides them a distraction from whatever happens. They are connecting through blackouts, through power cuts during the bombings. They are following the lectures because it's a different world. It's something fundamental. And I think we should remember, and this is exactly what Sarah said, science is there. And, you know, it keeps them going, and it gives something bigger to look forward to. And I think this needs to be propagated to societies who are having it easy at the moment. And this is why I'm surprised that we are really focused on Higgs. For example, in the recent years, from Ukrainian students, we are getting many more questions about pentaquarks. And the presentation during the HCB today was very important. 72 new particles discovered. How do we present them in the right context? I found spectroscopy always very fascinating. I think we should just think about it. I mean, this is not Higgs, this is not new force, but it's also fun. You know, it's accessible. This is something we start physics from. So I think maybe something we should work on. And maybe I'll just drop a point, which probably would not be questioned here, but this is just a food for thought, because we are focusing on fundamental science, so this is far away of the problems of the current world, the wars, etc. But some countries are actually using fundamental science for the military purposes, and these questions might come up about the scientists working beyond the fundamental physics and extending their knowledge to non-fundamental applications.
So I don't think we should touch upon that one today. But
go on. Okay, so you guys are really excited by precision. I get really excited by the intricacies of my field as well. The harsh reality is most people are not. So if you want to communicate that, you do absolutely have to find the right way to do it. I agree that people are interested in people. And on your point there, a story I did recently for the program I work on was about a robot building competition aimed at schools. Okay, so it's a national and it's become an international competition where different schools are invited to build a robot to fulfill a series of challenges. What was really good about this program, though, is it's not just about building the robot. It's in order for the teams to win prizes, they don't just have to build a robot that successfully navigates the course. They have to demonstrate that they can do outreach to younger students and they can make merch. Right, so they were making the T-shirts and the hats, and they were fundraising. And the point of this was, it was to attract more students that might initially be interested in STEM subjects. Because if you're saying, right, we're going to have a robot building competition, you know the type of kids who are going to be interested and attracted to it. And it's only going to be the people who are interested in that bit of it. And what you do is you get you say, right, also there's going to be a bit of business management, or what, you know, however you say it, to make it attractive to students. We're going to do the merchandise, we're going to do the outreach. And so you're encouraging, you're spreading your net wider. And what you get is you get bigger teams. Not everyone has to concentrate on the minutiae of the programming and the circuitry. The people that were interested in other areas become interested in that, and you cast the net wider for STEM. Also, you're not just attracting white males, which is always going to be good. You get this diversity of thought. And I thought that was a really great way of attracting more people into this and making it cool. And that's what you have to do. You have to make it cool. If you're going to give it a name like the God particle, fine, you don't get that every day. But I also agree with Daniel that everything that you do, all you have to do is think about it in a certain way, and you can either make it cool with the number of magnets and the size of the Eiffel Tower or whatever it is, or that this could one day cure cancer. Okay, you have to put the spin on it. And the harsh reality is that's how you reach most people. I find it frustrating because I just want to talk about the next incremental step, or even the thing that only a few people realistically in the world are going to be interested in. But you have to make it broad brushstrokes. We did the second program that we did from CERN, the one where I didn't cry. We went around CERN, so we went to the antimatter lab. The antimatter factory, and we saw some robots that were there, and we did a piece with one of the authors that's featured in the book of short stories that Connie commissioned. So Connie actually commissioned a number of authors, I don't know whether you know this, to write short stories inspired by the science of CERN, another way of communicating science. And so terrifyingly, I think you allowed authors to run riot with the science and imagine things happening that maybe could or couldn't. But it's another great way of reaching people. But the story that I chose to put first in this half-hour program was about proton beam therapy and about treating cancer, okay? Because that's the thing that most people are going to relate to. So the three, the proton beam, and the Medici is, I think, the projects that's about targeting and annihilating cancer cells, and then the flash effect, I think I remember as well. But I started with the cancer stuff because that's the stuff that people want to hear about. And once they're sucked in, hopefully the program's interesting enough. The people I featured were, and the bits of the interviews that I featured were not a scientist saying, this is what we've discovered, and this is, or rather, this is the details of this is the details of this is the details. It's about, I can't remember her name, she was Italian.
But I think we need to move away from this area. I think a lot of people will debate whether we should really,
But the point being, it's about putting exciting people on camera, and it's about having an emotional program. Exactly. So you have people; those are the people that the audience will pay attention to. So talking of the audience, moving smoothly over, there's a few questions over there. Mira, you gave the mic to someone.
Hi, thank you so much for putting this discussion together. It's been really interesting so far. One of the issues that I think we have in our science communication is that we've lost a level of trust in the public, because we have some really cool ideas, things like, a collider that can generate black holes. But then we make these promises that we can't deliver. And in that way, we lose the faith of the public. And at the end of the day, these are the people funding us. So effectively, we lie to our investors to get their attention. So I find that the science journalist is in a very uncomfortable position, because you need to generate interest, but our jobs are not always super interesting. There's a lot of work. I mean, it takes 9 years to get a PhD, right? There's a lot of precision work that needs to be done. So it's unfair to expect the public to understand exactly what we're doing. And some of the work that we're doing now is very nuanced. So my question for the panel, and anyone can take this, is how do you stimulate interest in the public by maintaining honesty, but also indicating just why our field is exciting, and how to do that without resorting to things like using the term God particle, which is itself misleading. So sorry, very, very nuanced, multi-level question.
It's very nice because you preempted exactly one of the questions I had for the panel. So please, go ahead. And we were discussing this before with Daniel as well, so I think Daniel will comment on this.
I have a couple of things I think we should do to keep people interested in what we do for the years ahead. And one of them, we have the Higgs boson discovery. That there's been one downside of it from a communications point of view, is that it's given the impression that this is what particle physics is about, finding new elementary particles. And this doesn't happen very often. And we found all the ones we're pretty sure we know should exist. So we should borrow from the astronomers who do this so much better, because they never promise they're going to discover a certain thing. If you think of the press around the James Webb Telescope, they just promise that they're going to look farther. They're going to look at the universe at older times in higher definition. And that's exactly what we're doing with the fundamental constituents, in the other direction. So, if you think of Galileo's, observation of the moons of Jupiter, and the fact that not that long later in humanity's lifespan, we've now got craft landing on those moons, sending pictures back. This is remarkable. And particle physics has done a similar thing, but it's harder for people to visualize. The other thing, so we need to borrow from astronomers there, not overpromise, and the Higgs boson discovery has cemented that narrative. We need to break it a bit. The other thing is authenticity. And what we seem to be doing, I think, and this is largely through institutional comms, PR offices, is presenting a too polished view of our field. That it's all about the final results and packaging them, and we miss out on all the human aspects. And the thing is, we have a golden opportunity now, because we are in arguably the hardest point in this field in anyone's memory who's working in the field. The Standard Model has provided a very fruitful diversion of filling in the gaps predicted by theorists. We've kind of done that now. We know a lot more, but we're really a bit stuck now. And I think we should be standing up and talking about that, because that not only brings us directly the human aspect of what we do, but it also takes us to the heart of the scientific method, which is that we have this wonderful model. Why are we trying to break it? Not many other sectors of human endeavor do that. We're constantly trying to check ourselves, doubt ourselves, and standing up and saying, look, we're stuck, we need your help, we need more brains in this field to get us through this, is true, and goes a step level to make this more human and not a polished final result, because that's not what science is. It's never finished.
Daniel?
That was on point. That was a question on point. Because what you are asking is how we can communicate effectively with people. I give talks about effective communication. I'm a journalist, so I can't give media trainings, but I am allowed to talk about effective communication. There are 3 basic principles you need to follow in an effective communication. First, it needs to be simple. When I say something, everybody needs to understand what I'm saying. Not like when you are reading a scientific article. You need to immediately understand, and there should be no question about what I'm saying. Everybody should immediately understand. Secondly, it needs to be trustworthy. If there is a new particle, you will always believe and trust Sarah more than you will trust me. And rightfully so, she's an expert, I'm not. Your communication needs to be simple, trustworthy, and useful. If what you are saying and giving to people is not useful, they will not spend their time and energy. While I'm preparing a TV show, I'm asking people to invest in me. They are paying with their time and energy to watch the show. If you finish the show and you said, okay, what did I learn? How was it useful? And you said, it gave me nothing, you will not watch next time. The very same thing is in here. You are watching this panel, that is something new to you. If you do not like it and you will say, oh, that was waste of time, you are not coming next time. And the very same thing is in science communication. You need to make things useful to people. They need to understand why they should listen to you, why they should invest in you. That's what we want to achieve. What you want to achieve is that about the research that you are communicating, people want to talk in a pub. When we are preparing morning broadcast, we always pick topics that are important, that are relevant to people, and are those kind, and also always we prepare the way how to talk about them, that you want to talk about them while you are having lunch with your colleagues. That's what you want to aim for. Think about it like when your friends are asking about your job. What you want to aim is not only talk about the God particle. No, you want to make sure that you feel this enthusiasm about the precision of physics. which normally nobody cares. When you try, because I love your enthusiasm, while you were talking about the precision physics, that was it. That's what I want to see in guests in my shows. That's exactly what I want to see. But when I say the very same stuff to people in a tram, they will, leave immediately, unfortunately. I don't mean it in a bad way. I'm just saying that when you are saying, okay, we are more precise, 10 to 3, oh, no, sorry. You lost the interest because they are not feeling how useful it is to them. So to your point, make sure that you can make it as useful as possible and not promising that something that you cannot fulfill. When I receive a press release saying, oh, we are on the way to cure cancer, in 99% I'm deleting this message. Because from my experience, this person who sent me this message is for 99.9% of relevance a fraud. Because I simply know that you can't, treat cancer as one because we have 200 types of cancer or even more. And they are promising to treat cancer? No, I can't believe that. I can't believe that it's as simple as that. You need to do more. So you can promise a step. I will read it usually, but there is a warning sign. So yes, make it trustworthy with small steps, not to always trying to change the world as a whole.
Paris.
In these three elements, which were so crisply defined, we get in a grade system from A to D, and then there's also F for failing. We get usually a C in simplicity. We get an A+ in authority and correctness and so on and so on. And then we get an F in why it's useful. Because clearly, we invented the World Wide Web and so on, but it has nothing to do with the electroweak interaction, the web. It really is completely independent. So, I think the question now is, and perhaps we should concentrate a little bit the discussion on whether the outreach or the communication is to the money holders, our colleagues in other physics departments and other sciences, or to the public. Because the way you make the message simple is very dependent on the audience. And the way you explain utility is also very dependent on the audience, and one size doesn't fit all. So to explain to a colleague, a chemist, why what we're doing is useful is one thing. To explain it to somebody that you start chatting with on the tram on the way to work or something like that is a completely different business. And that's where it becomes tough. You need to feel the audience, and we need some good tips from people who really know how to chat people up and turn a complicated message into a simple one. And with this, I pass on the baton.
So I just want to follow up on that, but who's the most important audience?
Actually, to follow up on that, what I've noticed is the decision makers might often listen to their kids, and they might listen to their other halves, or they might just listen to the general hubbub. No, I don't do business, executive meetings, pitching for funding and stuff like that. So I genuinely don't know how important they are. That actual half hour where you're with the flip chart and you're saying we can do this, and you use X a lot, 10X, whereas I think really it should be 10 times. There you go. But everyone's human, and even the execs that make the decision they absorb what people are excited about. Just generally, it might be on the tram, it might be that their daughter is saying, oh, this is really cool. They might be just absorbing the general hubbub. So I think do put value on the excitement that's just around the decision makers. I'm not saying, I agree with you. You communicate differently to the decision makers, to the public, but the decision makers listen to the public. And I know this because, in the world of media, the way you get your next job on telly is not whether you're great at your work. This is you're seeing a little bit inside my heart and my brain now. It's not about whether you're the best in your field. It's about whether the newspapers are talking about you. for whatever the reason, because that's why other people will tune in. And so there's a little bit of that going on. So I do think the decision makers listen to the wider world.
I would absolutely agree. Never try to talk to everybody. You are talking to nobody. If you are trying to talk to everybody, you are talking in a wrong way. You need to learn as much as possible about your viewers, about your readers, about the audience that you are talking to. For example, when we have the very same topic we want to explain to public, to our general public, because I work for a public broadcaster for Czech TV, we have a different attitude for different programs, because we know that different people are watching different programs. I will use different metaphors. I will use different level of sophistication, of deepness of the topic for different programs. You always need to adjust. And I do agree that kids are really important decision makers. For example, some of the greatest, meaning the largest car companies, are targeting their advertisement on 11 years old, because they are the ones who are making the decisions for their dads and moms which car to buy. That's the way it is. And if you want to make sure that the politicians are listening, they always need to listen to general public, but sometimes you want to communicate just a teeny tiny fraction of your work to a concrete teeny tiny part of politicians and stakeholders. And that's a very different communication than I do. But you need to sometimes do it, and then you can have, for example, a new accelerator.
If only it were that easy. So we'll take Sarah first, and then we'll take 2 more questions from the audience, and I want to move on to 1 more question. So,
yeah, I'll be very quick. So I think one of the benefits of having 10,000 people, or many, many more in a community, is that we don't have to choose just one audience. And I think one of the potential goals of this panel is for everybody to think about what their strengths are in terms of communication. We have writing, we have, interviews, we have storytelling. There are so many different ways that we can communicate with the public. And even in our field now, if you look at Tracy's talk or other presentations that have been given, a lot of tools to connect people. If we had more people putting a fraction of their time into this, we could reach many more audiences authentically and do a tremendous amount. I was teaching recently and misspoke and called it tic-tac instead of TikTok, right? Social media is not going to be my thing. Thank God we have lots of people who can do social media. But I think that's how we reach the audiences, because there are many audiences.
Thank you. Freya.
Thank you very much. It's a very interesting discussion. So that's actually, Sarah, your comment really feeds into my question. My question is, so this is all really wonderful, but at the same time, when we talk to the young people in our field, they feel like they do not have time, or that it's bad for their career to actually contribute to these activities. And they're also very intimidated typically by simplifying things or making things accessible, while at the same time they have just been trained by us to make things as complicated and as jargon-filled as possible. How do we convince these people that this is good for their career, that they need to invest their time on this while they're not working on their papers?
Stealing your question,
yeah, so Freya obviously saw my questions beforehand, and it's the one I have in red, so thank you, Freya. But before the panel actually addressed that, could we just have a show of hands in this wide audience of about 150 people? Who actually is engaged in doing some form of education and outreach? Please put your hands up. And be like a teenager, or a young teenager, where you put your hand really up, not like a 17-year-old where you do this. So the ones who don't put their hands up, you're not allowed to leave? Okay. Not until we brainwash you. Over to the panel.
I think we should tell people what's in it for them. What has outreach ever done for them? And it's true, in some countries and some structures, it's not necessarily a career bonus, but in some countries it is. We were talking last night about INFN and how they have quite a structured, incentives for people to do more of this stuff, and that needs to be reinforced. The other thing is that we seem to think that we're doing science here and physics here, and communication is a separate thing. It's not. Communication is the lifeblood of what we do. Writing papers, grant proposals, shop talk, you name it. when you write a paper, it's a persuasive argument to try and convince someone that you're telling the truth. So, and the third thing, so being a better communicator in outreach can help you communicate. You can write better grant proposals if you've taken the time to take a step back and look at your field from the outside. And I think, certainly in my case, and many people who start off doing outreach when they were physicists, someone said earlier, you know, the day-to-day grind of being a physicist these days, with sitting in front of code for 12, 14 plus hours a day on a minuscule bug or some other problem, when you step back and talk to a room of interested school kids or others, and you get their enthusiasm back, and you remember why it was you went into the field, and it can relight the fire beneath you in why you're doing this. And I think from a personal perspective, that those three things, regardless of the impact it has on, you know, recruiting more people into the field or just making people more aware of science and technology, they are really serious, tangible benefits to doing this stuff.
To me, it's simple. It's related to reward and obligation. We have, you know, the young people that we want to make sure will engage with outreach. And we tell them this is something we should all be doing, yes, yes, yes. Now, your next job will be determined by the analysis you're going to do, by the piece of instrumentation you're going to carry out, and so on and so on. And nowhere do we mention this part, outreach. So tell you what, they're not going to do it, okay? Except for the die-hard volunteers. So one can say lots of bad things about EU proposals and so on, but, you know, having served many years on their panels, the fact that you're obliged to have a complete section in your proposal that explains how you're going to communicate your research, actually that's a bright spot in their system. And it's something that we should be considering. And in fact, if all of our funding proposals were obligated to have that part, and if we even got graded on that part, and if your overall performance included that piece as well, to some fraction to be decided, to be determined, it would change the picture entirely. So we need to reward this work, but to be telling everybody it's very important to be involved in outreach and then tell them it has nothing to do with the job you're going to get next, is the best way to make sure that they will not get involved. So it's just, yeah, voila.
May I? Thank you. Why? Why to do it? Okay, there are a few positive and one negative. Think of this. Why to do it? First, you will be a better scientist. I love the quote of John Searle, who says, if you can't say it clearly, you don't understand it yourself. He's absolutely right. If you are talking to the general public, you will be a better scientist, because you will understand really deeply about the questions that you are dealing with, and they will come up with more questions that will influence you in a great way. So you will be a better scientist. Second, you will help the society. You are doing science because of your curiosity. Your advancement in science can change the world. Now, when you are doing the outreach, you are helping the society. You can actually change the world. I know a lot of young scientists who came to me and said, okay, thanks to the Hyde Park Civilization show, we started to do science because we thought it was cool. I think that's a good idea. And I'm always happy when teachers send me the links to their teachings while they are using the programs to help pupils to understand the topics they are talking to. So, secondly, you can help the society. Third, it will help you in your grants. It's getting more and more popular that if you are doing an outreach, that it will help you, that it will be easier to secure financing, that will secure funding, that will secure money for your work. Thirdly, it will give you a chance, or fourth, it will give you a chance to be leader in your area. I have a few examples when we prepared a short program, 90 seconds long program, short piece about a scientist who after that was asked by 2 laboratories who are working on the same thing as she is. Now she's leading a group of 3 laboratories. You can gain new collaborations. Actually, it can also help you personally, because you will meet new people. It will open the doors for you. It will give you more chances to do more things, not just science. You will have more opportunities. About your question for the young scientists, that's actually one of the biggest troubles. I've been doing science communications since 2012, and at the beginning, our main issue was to persuade scientists to talk about science. Because their colleagues said, oh, you simplified too much. You dumbed it. And the scientists were worried that they will not be taken seriously. My favorite guests in all the programs that we are having, with just few exceptions, are PhD students. I love the energy, I love the concentration, I love the enthusiasm. I don't want, as you said, the bosses. No, their job is to secure finance, to lead the team. I want the PhD students. That's the crucial part of it. And that's why bosses need to stand up. They need to stand up and say to their team, to their young scientists, I will support you. I will help you with that. I will dedicate a little bit of my time to help you out. If you have PR people in your teams, reach out to them and ask them to give you some pieces of advice. Because starting from 0 to at least 0.9 is very easy. To get it done is really difficult. But the first steps can be achieved with a short training. Within a day, you can improve your skills dramatically. And then you will be much better than you are at the beginning in a very short time. So reach to them. One more thing I would want to mention, and that's for PR people and for the bosses. Give your people feedback. After they do the interview, give them a detailed feedback. Dedicate the time to let them know what he or she can improve. And if there is the chance, include grandmothers. Because the feedback of grandmothers is the most valuable one. Seriously. Many times we had problems to persuade people to go on the screen, but after grandmother said, oh, Michael, you are so handsome. You are so amazing. Michael's been on TV with no issues at all. But Sarah is very right. It's very right. It's very true. Not for everyone. Not everyone is comfortable on the screen, and that's okay. If you do not like to be on the screen, just write a blog. Do a short videos on TikTok. Post on Instagram. You know, find a way. And that's the negative thing. If you are not talking to people, if people do not know what you are doing, there might be a situation that you have no job.
So thank you, Daniel. I didn't want to interrupt you because all you said was absolutely excellent. There are lots of questions in the audience. I think we'll start with the right, then head over to the left, and head back, and so on. So let's start with the right.
Hi, thanks for the nice discussion. I want to focus back to targeted audiences, specifically young girls. So if I gloss over the NSF longitudinal study, it seems to suggest that girls lose interest in some of the STEM subjects in middle school or maybe even earlier. More specifically, you know, I have young boys and I try to teach them math, but I have no experience with young girls. And my friend, a close friend has a girl, and I say, well, what's she into? Well, she's into pink and ponies. And I said, okay, how am I going to connect with her? So I bought a calculator off of eBay that's hot pink and put ponies all over it. And I sent a TI-82 that way and hoping that it would connect. And then I found some chemistry sets with makeup and things. But in terms of particle physics, you know, what I do or anything, I can't really find ways to connect with people, especially young audiences like that. If you have any suggestions for me, or are there targeted approaches that I could refer to, or how should we think about it? There are a lot of audiences that I can't reach out to. Inner city young black men that live in our neighborhood. I've gone to career sessions where I go table to table and I sit down and it's like communications just doesn't even start. So I have to start with something. Maybe you have some suggestions specifically for me, but maybe in general.
I do, if I can say something.
Then let's...
Talking about young people, one of the things that I do is a thing called the Special Guest Program. So around CERN we've got the Montreux Jazz Festival, we've got Paleo. And for years now, I've been inviting bands, artists, to come for a visit. They have a day off, they're like, what are we going to do here in this little Geneva? There's nothing going on. So I say, would you like to come to CERN? It's a lot of research to find who the person that manages the tour. And they come. And I've had Muse, Metallica, Roger Waters. I've had a whole range. Jack White came for his birthday. I've had a whole range of artists. And I don't ask anything in return other than, could you please post on your social media and say, if you enjoyed it, I had a great time. Because you reach millions of people, kids who are fans of yours, and they're going to say, oh, what did Jack do on his birthday? He went to the science place. And it comes back to the whole angle of making it cool. This, of course, is a very general public or young person approach to outreach, but it's making it cool. And if you have a contact to Taylor Swift, just let me know.
That was a pitch, wasn't it?
Me too.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, I suppose the thing not to do is to expect, I think you kind of hinted at this anyway, don't expect that you will be able to connect personally to those people, but find people who can. So, you know, whether it's the rock stars and whether it's about the kind of organisations or charities that do know how to connect within schools, and I think we are talking about young people here, so find sort of organisations or charities that do reach into schools and cast that net wider, like I was saying, and you know, social media and stuff. Let your younger scientists, and yeah, I'm after the PhD students as well because of exactly what you said, the enthusiasm and the less corporate way that they think, you know, that and also, you know, young people are then seeing young people on TV, and that's the theory of media. You know, you respond when you see yourself on TV or hear it on the radio or read about it. So you know, let your researchers run riot on social media. And who's the person? Was it Clara who I interviewed at CERN, and she has a TikTok and she's there in front of the CMS and she's saying, hey, I just did this today. And the other good thing about social media is it's nowhere near as formal as a press release where you might anguish over it for weeks or months to get the messaging right and the timing right. The thing about social media is you can just knock off a 60-second video and it's done. You can do another one tomorrow, and today's audiences aren't expecting anything polished as well. So if you've got that, you know, it's a really fast drip feed, and it comes back to that word cool, which you know, maybe is a good thing or not for, you know, for your industry, but yeah, it's just that regular drip.
So I'm going to stop Dan.
I will just give one piece of advice, because you mentioned the young kids, the little girls. What I would do, I would take the unicorn, place it in Atlas, and took picture of it. Then I would. Does she has a lot of unicorns and maybe a fence at home? I would create a fence in as like LHC. Create the whole CERN just for unicorns. Give a playground in CERN. Let them play in CERN. Use the unicorn. I have, for example, you can have the toy with you everywhere. Let unicorn experience CERN, and then the girl will come as well, because unicorn loved it.
So just to complete my thing, I met up with the guys from a band called the Kings of Leon a couple of weeks ago at Hyde Park, and they were one of my first special guests. And one of the brothers, they were very nervous about coming to CERN, and they didn't want me to interview them. We don't really know what's going on. We just think it's really interesting. So, but I did a little interview with them, and they posted on social media, and they gave me one of the best quotes I've ever had. He said, "We spent a great day off at this place, this science place. It's so cool what they're doing here. It made me wish I'd finished high school." And I think that touches, right? It reaches. Any more questions on this one?
So we have lots of questions over here at this side. Mira, I don't know who has the mic.
Hi, just a quick comment as a physics journalist. We've been talking in sort of maybe slightly anguished tones, and I just wanted to provide a little perspective, having recently come from a condensed matter conference on topological insulators. Let me tell you, just when the Nobel Prize was given to Haldane and Thouless and the rest in, I think it was 2016, 2017, a lot of science journalists were extremely distressed. That was not the case for black holes. That was not the case for the Higgs discovery. Particle physics is doing extremely well at communicating to the public, communicating to funders. The P5 report was extremely clear. Yeah, Satoshi. And so I just want to emphasize this, because I know that there's some anxiety around the room. You know, it feels like if you can't communicate well enough, it is existential. Your job is on the line, your career is on the line, your field is in decline. first of all, I want to say that's not the case. The Electron Ion Collider, God bless it, it's a $3 billion project, and there's not a person out there who can communicate why deep inelastic scattering is as important as figuring out the origin of mass. And the nuclear physicists are doing just fine. So I just want to make this point to say that really particle physics is doing extremely well at communicating, and I mean, you can pat yourself on the back, but also, don't worry too much, and don't put so much effort don't put so much emphasis on making communication your lifeline. People are interested, people want to know more about it, and I really think if you just take one thing away from this quick comment, and I apologize that it's not a question, communication is about expectations. That is the expectation you have of your audience, and it is the expectation the audience has from you. So one of the things that you can do to build trust is, not tell them that string theory is going to solve everything. That can result in a backlash. Another thing you can do to communicate well is have the right expectation for your audience, whether it's kids, whether it's policymakers, whether it's your colleagues. So if communication is about expectations, and if you can get those right, people love particle physics, you guys will do a great job. So
I think part of that Matt touched on as well, about not making promises that you can't keep. But I think what I interpret from what you said was, we can just sit back and relax because we're doing a great job. That's the way I interpreted it. So, we need professional communicators to talk to me. But maybe our panel would like to comment on, do you think we are really doing a good job? Can we do better? Do we need these guys out here to do better?
I think existential issues is hitting the nail on the head. It really is something I think that's more within the community than outside it. My point just escaped me completely in this.
But it's not as if you're a professional communicator, Matt. So.
No, I have feet in both camps. I'll come back to it. Yeah.
I think that when we are talking about general public, it's very different than we are talking about the audience who is actually interested in physics. Yeah, that's a very different thing. When you are talking general public, particle physics is doing not as well as it is among other physicists or other fields of physics, maybe. Yeah, I'm just saying. Yeah.
So,
I do believe that people are interested in particle physics, don't get me wrong, because I do believe that the simulations, for example, that were made in CERN were amazing and did a great job. I'm just speaking from the experience of a person who talks to people who usually deal with a pension reform, who are asking if I'm receiving my pension next week or not. I'm talking to these kind of people. If I'm talking to people who wants to read a newsletter of CERN, it's a very different audience for me. And I am afraid that sometimes it can be existential in the long term. I do not expect a switch and we will turn everything down. But what I do expect is higher and higher pressure of getting something new built and new experiments running, because you will be out of the funding for a long time just with curiosity. If you have public that is backing you up, you will have greater chance to fund anything you want to do.
On that note, we come on to another question from the audience, and then we go over there as well. Maybe so maybe we take two questions, one from here and one from there, and let the audience deal with both of them.
Thank you. So I have a question about the young community, like going down when we are doing the outreach in schools and other things. So we go there and we try to connect with the students, let's say in the high school or below the high school or right starting the university. And in order to connect with them, we dial down our way of explanation. And that though creates the curiosity, it sometimes later turns into a disappointment when they actually start working. They don't see the things they were told in an exciting way, but rather they see the real difficulty in science. And so my question is, how do we find a trade-off in this communication to make them join us effectively?
So do we have a related question over on the other side?
I would say that this is related because I think there's been a lot of emphasis on the answers, the Higgs boson, the precision, furthering precision results being an answer to the question. But is there an Earth-like planet out there? Is there life in the universe? These are questions that motivate people, and there's an ongoing search for them, and people are enthusiastic about. There are many questions like that. To me, it's the open questions. We don't know where most of the matter in the universe comes from. We don't know why there's any matter left in the universe, why it wasn't annihilated. Those are open questions. We are working to solve those. And, there are many ways to solve them, and it will be ongoing. Why not focus on the questions?
I absolutely agree. And to your question about, don't be afraid of dumbing it down. Of course you're going to dumb it down for not only school kids, but for 99.9% of the world as well. First of all, don't be afraid of doing that. We were talking beforehand, and I think you mentioned it, Daniel, that one of the reasons scientists find it difficult to go on, on the media and explain things is because their colleagues take the mickey out of them for dumbing stuff down. Shame on you. Communication is hard. And making, you can talk in Greek letters as much as you want, and you've worked really hard to be able to understand that. But being able to tell that story to the rest of the world is a skill, and it's hard. And if you can do it, you should be proud of it, and you should celebrate the people that can. And I don't agree that everyone should be able to do it, and I don't believe everyone should, should be made to do it in that kind of very obvious way. I sometimes write a script in 15 minutes, and then I get a bit embarrassed thinking, I didn't work hard enough on that. And it took a colleague of mine to say, yeah, I did that too, to realise, oh yeah, the stuff that I find easy, most people find nearly impossible. Same for you in your field. The stuff that you think about, that you find, let's say, easy, most people in the world find really hard. So communication is really hard. Finding a way to communicate your ideas to the public is really hard. Finding a way to connect with students is really hard and might seem really dumbed down, but what you have to do is excite them. And yeah, most of them won't go through to work at a place like Fermilab or CERN, but what you're doing is you're casting the net wide enough to find those people who are going, oh yeah, I'm interested, and they will follow it through. And the idea of the open questions is perfect. JWST at the moment is enjoying its Higgs boson moment, and then in 10 years' time or whatever, maybe it will have done everything, I don't know, done everything that can, and then the same questions will be asked of that. But at the moment, that is the exciting thing. So show them the cool stuff, right? Show them the cool stuff, and then ask them, did you know that, those galaxies, they should fly apart? What the hell's going on there? And in fact, did you know that nearly everything in my hand we can't see? Do the cool stuff and do not be afraid of dumbing it down, because that's how you find your next generation.
Let's go to Sarah, and then I'll go to another question from the audience.
Yeah, I think, I don't know how cool this is, but we do actually have some research in terms of what seems to work well and what doesn't work well. We had a really fascinating study that was done about some conferences for undergraduate women in physics, where we had feedback forums, and we had a number of speakers come who were successful. And one of the things they said is, I was really lucky. And they were being humble. And we got feedback that, people thought, oh, it's just luck. I don't have a prayer if it's just luck. So it's one of those situations where someone meant to do something good, but it backfired. So what did we learn there? We learned that maybe the way to present this was, well, I worked really hard and had to prepare, and I had some breaks. I had some luck, and I was ready to take advantage of it, right? There's a twist. I think one of the things that we can do when we go in and work with younger groups in particular is have some level of vulnerability that makes it clear that this is exciting. I love this. Boy, I worked really hard. There were times when I didn't understand this. I remember not understanding that. That level of vulnerability means that maybe when the person hits the first roadblock, because they're gonna hit a roadblock, they're not gonna think, I'm terrible at this, I can't do this, I'm not as smart as that. They'll think, oh right, this is hard, it's not supposed to be easy. So I do think there are tricks that we can do that will give us a better chance of hanging on to people who have that curiosity, but maybe think that it's supposed to be easy. It's not. We all fought. This is not hard. It's not easy, right?
So I'll just hand over to Andreas.
Yeah, Andreas Meyer-Desi, CMS. One thing I think we are not addressing enough here is the aspect of multiplication, multipliers, communication intermediators. Ultimately, I think we are discussing this too much in a way that is marketing-like. You know, we talk to the consumers and they get, you know, completely carried away by how cool we are. But I think we should stick a little bit to what we think of ourselves and our field the most, and then explain it to people who have the best chances to understanding it, and then rely on them multiplying it, because ultimately our field is about insight and education and learning. And so one of the things we haven't discussed or barely touched upon is schools, from elementary school to, you know, PhD level schools, where many of the teachers are actually pretty clueless about what we're doing, but they are really understanding how to explain to the students the things in a way that is accessible to the students, also in the way that makes the students, you know, remain attached even when they start understanding more. And, you know, I don't think that we need a maximum number of clicks on the social media by people who ultimately go off and do you know, marketing for something else because it's cool.
Can I just respond to that education point, because I think that's absolutely critical. We haven't really addressed the difference between education, communication, outreach. I mean, books have been written about this, but what we shouldn't be thinking about, I don't think, when we're talking about outreach, is trying to educate people. That is not, we shouldn't be trying, this is the old, now defunct deficit model of communication where we fill the public with knowledge. This is very outdated. In education, even in the late 19th century, this was addressed. We now have much more student-centric learning, it's called. And in general, the field outreach has moved more to a dialogue kind of model. I don't think the journalists present are thinking they're educating people, they're providing information, they're entertaining. Maybe I'm underselling your profession, but it's not. This happens in schools. And things like the CERN teacher program, for example, is a great example of this, whereby teachers come to CERN, they experience it, and they take their enthusiasm back to the classrooms. And there's been huge success stories on this with that amplifier effect. But we shouldn't think, and this cripples many of us when we sit in front of a camera, or we think we have to get this information across. We don't. The modern way of thinking about science communication is very much more offering people a positive experience in a science context. And in the Science Gateway, the big new visitor center at CERN, there's absolutely amazing artworks in there, which are connected with science. They came from that dialogue between artists and scientists. But if people come there, are amazed and just look at this thing for 5 minutes, it's like a gallery. You know, you can sit down and just look at it, go away with no information as such, then that's a huge success, that interaction.
So we take Paris's last comment and then we'll have to start closing.
I agree so much with what you said, Andreas. So much and deeply. And the point is, going back again to the targeted audiences, I am the last person who can communicate very effectively with a 7-year-old by now, or an 8-year-old. And, you know, frankly, there are few people, you know, on this planet who can do this job really well. And usually they're teachers and so on. So we are going to get an amplification factor, okay, exactly by going down to the ones we can communicate with more easily and more effectively, and teachers are a prime target group for us. I really think that this is a group to go after, okay? So programs like the one at CERN and many other national laboratories in the US and other places are really places, are programs that we should be investing on.
And here, they have a wonderful, in the Czech Republic, a wonderful teacher program as well.
Excellent,
So,
glad to hear.
Final comment, Matt, and then we'll close up.
Yeah, the one way to shut up a whole room full of science communicators is to say, why don't you become science teachers? We should be promoting this. If you really want to make a difference on a generational level, then transform, I'm not saying leave the field, we need more physicists too, but transform that enthusiasm to the classroom. That's where you'll make a difference, and we need to support the teaching profession much more. There's not enough trained physics teachers in many countries. It's a huge problem.
Okay, so unfortunately we don't have time for more questions because I'm conscious that we have to move on to the next session. But may I just invite each of the panel members 30 seconds, a last closing statement. So we'll start from Daniel. Really 30 seconds though. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Daniel.
According to the psychologists who deal with people who are under stress, who are in a crisis, if you want the adult who is under stress to understand you, you need to treat him or her like a 12-year-old. And when people are listening to scientists about particle physics, he or she is usually under stress. So always imagine a 12-year-old to whom you are talking to, in a way that he or she wants to tell his friends about it. Talk about your job in the way that your friends will be keen to listen to you while you are having not only the 5th, but also the 1st beer that night. Thank you very much.
I think science in a general context lifts the people's minds from the everyday stuff they find in the news, which is usually gloom, crooks, horrors, conflict, and nothing very much good going on. Science, this is one of the reasons why the Higgs boson and the LHC got such traction, is it lifts people's minds away from that. With the Higgs discovery, we are piecing together the ultimate narrative, which is from electroweak symmetry breaking, the origin of the universe, to its possible ultimate stability, and everything in between, including possibly what the dark sector is. And that's the ultimate story of our origins. And if we can't lift people above their daily routines and the horror that we find in many places where we do find news, then we should probably find something else to do.
All right, I take 5 of my seconds to thank people here in the room. There were a lot of hands that went up when we were asked who's engaged in public engagement and outreach. And I want to respond to one of Freya's questions about how do we actually give people permission and give people time with a challenge for all of us to spread. I try to do one thing every year that I can point back to and say that was a legitimate public engagement. It was different for me. It got me out of my comfort zone. I measure it by what level of terror I had when I went into it, in part, and it has taken me to really wonderful places and made me a better scientist. So I hope that we all can spread that message, and thank you very much for being engaged.
I love this subject, I love science, I love technology, but I think this applies to any field. It is possible to tell a good story about anything. When you're stuck in your area for the rest of your life, like most of us are, we might think it's boring, we might think it's mundane, and there's a lot of slog that goes on. But if you're able to step outside or find someone that can advise you, it is possible to tell an excellent story about anything. It may seem dumber than you want to go to, but that's how you grip the audience. You start with a headline, why do I want to hear more? And then you slip in something new that they've never heard before. You just need to find a way to describe it. It's all about telling stories.
We just have to do it. We have to communicate with funding agencies, for ulterior motives as well. Okay, we have to communicate with our colleagues in particle physics. We have to communicate with our colleagues at universities and other research centers. We have to communicate with the youngsters, and we have to communicate with message enhancers and retransmitters. Okay, it is our duty because we're getting paid basically to create knowledge. And well, if you're going to create knowledge, you have to share it as well. That's basically the main message from me.
Thank you very much. None of you are moving, which is a real sign of success. I know you've got sessions to go to. Thank you all for coming. When you put your hands up, it was really cool to see so many. Look back at our education and outreach sessions. They were brilliant. We ran over every time. There was no food left for us, but there were some great talks. At the coffee break, you will be able to try out some of the Google virtual reality games that were presented. There's a computer game. Please come and find us at the coffee break. And a big round of applause to the organizers of ICHEP for allowing this panel session, and also to all of our panelists. Thank you very much.